We are. Let me just double check with the comments. Um, but everything is looking good, which is a good thing. Um, Starting in 2 minutes. So I'm guessing we are indeed live. So welcome everybody. First of all, welcome to another stream. And today we have it's the Council Fans episode 2, in fact. But we only have it's only the four of us today, but I think we will still bring lots of interesting discussion and theories. So we'll start from the far left. Hello there, Gregory.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Good, good, good. Um, as always, Nikki. Hello there.
My Govanen.
And last but not least, Jason. Hello, my friend.
What's up, my melon?
There we go. There we go.
We're the
So,
Fab Four. The Fab Four today.
Indeed, indeed. And as you can tell from the title and thumbnail, first of all, let's say hello to everyone in chat. Hey team. Hello, howdy. Hello, CM. Hello, Priscilla, Storyteller, Tolkien Elcott. Hello as well, Toko Senpai. Hopefully more people will be joining in soon, but let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today. So we've got a few elven characters that we haven't seen so far in season 2, and a lot of the fan base do want to see. And one of them we already know, Kid, as we can see in chat right there, Kid and the Shipwright. He is right there. He's one of them, and so is Celeborn. And we'll even discuss Celebrian while we're at it. So those are going to be, and we're going to be discussing how we would incorporate them into season 2. And I think a good a good character to start off with it would be Keleborn, because he is really heavily discussed for being in the show. And of course, first of all, we don't want to say we cannot confirm or deny yet whether he's 100% involved, because I know some people saying Celeborn has a code name or whatever. That code name is the same one for season 1. So his season 1 code name, so that doesn't confirm whether he is in season 2 as of yet. So that is something we'll have to look to. So that's just a little update around Keleborn. He could still be in the show, but basing off just him having a code name does not confirm that. So I think, Jason, I'll start off with you, Keleborn. First of all, should we talk about it? Do you have any idea maybe why McPain, the showrunner, has decided not to have him in season 1?
No, I really don't. You know, there's a lot of reasons why I was super confused with that. But okay, let's say it's season 2. We're all the four of us have all been hired as writers for season 2, so we have to go off of what happened on season 1. Everything that I know of Tolkien lore, the way I would explain it would be this: that Celeborn was captured, perhaps was still in some prison somewhere, maybe the remnants of a Morgoth prison, where he's completely shut off from the rest of society. So Galadriel does not realize that he's still alive, and therefore he gets broken out somehow, and then boom, it's known, oh my gosh, he's still alive. That's the only way I think it could work, to where it still feels like the lore that we know already. That seems to be the best explanation I could come up with.
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
Go for it.
First with the question about whether, like, why they chose not to have him in the season 1. It directly correlates to the relationship I feel between Galadriel and Halbrand, because if her husband was there, if Celeborn was there and they were happy together and everything, I don't think Galadriel would be as aggressive and angry as she was. I don't think she would have traveled that much as she was. Either that or he would be traveling with her, and that would conflict with the whole, are they attracted to each other? Is this a romance? And the whole way they played it towards the end as well, with him like, you can rule by my side kind of thing, wouldn't have worked if Celeborn was by her side as well. So that would be why they chose not to have him in the show. Like, it wouldn't make sense. And then it would make Galadriel look really bad as a wife and a mother if he was home with the kid and she was traveling the world chasing Sauron and hooking up with or like flirting with Halbrand, makes no
Mhm.
sense. So that
And
wouldn't
I-
have worked.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason. The reason Celeborn wasn't in season 1 was because of Halbrand. McPain had a
Yeah.
clear maybe vision or understanding of wanting to have Sauron be next to Galadriel intertwine their characters.
Yes.
So yes, and we've also
And-
got sorry, I'm going to say something quickly.
Oh, I was gonna say, that makes perfect sense. See, I'm in such denial still that whole thing was a
Happened.
romance-ish thing that I just like
Mhm.
threw all that out. So
Fair
yes,
enough.
yeah, that makes perfect sense, Nikki.
Yep.
No,
And sorry, Gogu, before you jump in.
Go ahead.
Atoke Senpai, just to look at the chat, he says, given the close bonds between elven husbands and wives, Celeborn really did not get his due in season 1. Tolkien Elcott says, I think Cirdan will of course be introduced with Mythlond. Hope they will not simply put Celeborn there and Galadriel was just too busy. That would be a really weird way. And also, as always, a really big support to the channel, Priscilla. Thank you for the €5. I think Keleborn being a prisoner of war is the most likely. The stranger finding him in the east, it would explain Galadriel's friendship with the wizard.
Oh yeah,
That is
absolutely.
actually, that's all thanks to the contribution, and that is quite an interesting thing. Because we know we were talking about with long canon, in the movie universe of Jackson's films. Of course, we saw how close Galadriel and if Gandalf is a stranger was in the Hobbit movies. This could be a good way to potentially show that. But how Celeborn's now in Harad or Rune, I have no clue. That would be quite an interesting. But yeah, that's quite interesting. And then yeah, and I think as some of the chat are saying, it is a plausible theory that he has been imprisoned. So yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff.
Look what Nerd of the Rings just said.
Oh, we'll pull that up as
Hey.
well. He says, first of all, hello, my friend. He says, hey guys, my thought is that they might do a Celeborn / Glorfindel thing and give him the story of being sent back by the Valar. That would be, first of all, of course, the Glorfindel thing is a first character that everyone wants to see, but then of course, Jackson removed him, and in the second age, maybe McPain might do the same. But a way to compensate by that is maybe having that Celeborn Glorfindel thing together. So that is actually another interesting thing. Again, thank you for the comment.
Technically, then that's doing Glorfindel wrong again. If you think
That
about
is,
it,
yes, indeed.
Well, that's only.
but I mean, yeah, I could see that. I could see them combining the two stories.
Guys, we should let Gregory talk. He's been trying to speak now for ages.
Go, Greg, go.
Yeah, the one thing that's, first of all, I don't think, maybe I misunderstood Jason. I don't think they're saying instead of Glorfindel, but just doing that component of being sent back by the Valar, not combining the two stories. It would be really dirty if they completely took Glorfindel out, though. That would be terrible. But the thing that's confusing me timeline wise, we already know they're playing with it, but the timeline obviously quite a deal. But Celebrian is supposed to be born in 300 in the Second Age, which even if you don't like, even with everything being compressed, that's still, I think, antecedent to much of the stuff we've seen. So in theory, Celebrian should be an adult by this point. And I kind of wonder if maybe that's what's going on, that like, which I think the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'd sort of postulated that maybe Morgoth, that this story was Morgoth had killed Celeborn, but that would have been the first age, not the second, and it would have had to been before Celebrian was born. So that can't have happened. So something in the Second Age, right, would have had to have happened to Celeborn unless Celebrian has not been born yet, and I don't think that's likely. I think it might, one of the interesting things that might happen is we see the reunification of Galadriel and Celebrian at some point in the second season.
And Celebrian or Celeborn?
Celebrian.
So
as
you
an
think
adult.
she's born as she's an adult?
Yeah, and
Somewhere.
I think that because if she's an adult, then it seems more likely. I mean, we know that Galadriel and Celebrian separate from each other plenty of times as adults in the canon already. She could just be in another location already. And that's why Galadriel has already felt like she can go off and do her own thing. You know, she thinks her husband's dead or captured, and her child is an adult at this point. Though where she is, I'm not entirely sure.
Right.
I mean,
see, because
it would make sense based on the age of Elrond already, and they're supposed to be like lovers at some stage. Otherwise, it would be kind of creepy if she's a baby in season 2 and then
super creepy. Yeah, I don't want to see that.
no.
But okay, so everything you're saying makes sense, Greg, except for episode 1 when they were sending her to Valinor, right? Because why would she go to Valinor if her daughter was still in Middle Earth? You know what I mean?
That doesn't make sense either. Like,
But
none of that really adds up.
I mean, technically, that's exactly what Elrond eventually does.
True.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair. Then I wish they would have shown us that scene then. Like as a viewer,
Sure.
for someone who, let's say it's just a casual viewer watching, I think that would also be confusing to be like, oh wait, she has an adult daughter and was like here the whole time, you know? But
yeah,
they're gonna have to do that, because the other way of her having a child now who then Elrond romances just does not fit in any. You can't make it not creepy, you know.
Yeah. Did they ever state his age in season 1? Like, how old is he supposed to be? Because if he's relatively young, I suppose, like 100, 200, 300 years isn't really that big an age difference in the elvish age thing.
No.
But I don't know. I feel like he seemed like he should be older than that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think they're going to do a time jump because we already have Isildur and Elendil are alive, right? So I mean, how much of a time jump could you do?
Yeah, that too would make sense.
Greg, I think you're right, though. I think Celebrian is alive and is somewhere, and it's just weird that that she was never mentioned.
And
does anyone have off the top of their head how many years the first age lasts? I'm trying to remember exactly.
The first stage separately from the Year of the Trees, so
yeah,
not
separately
that
from the Year of the Trees.
Right. Well, the Year of the Tree. So I think someone said that Galadriel is, depending on how you, and if Nerd of the Rings, if you're still here, you probably have the exact answer. Depending on how the
590 says Tolkien Erklet. I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but so that puts Elrond at like about 320 years older than Celebrian, which in Elven terms is actually very close to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because if we're talking about the time of the trees too, then Galadriel's somewhere between like what 6,000 and 24,000 years old, depending on how you interpret that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one thing about Celeborn that I want to go back to, as you can see on screen right now, some have theorized that maybe this warrior in this image here is potentially Celeborn. That isn't, of course, it's just speculation. But would any of you
didn't they say who that was?
Huh?
They didn't just say unspecified elven warrior. They said who it was, didn't they?
No, they just said the legend is that it's an elven warrior, but they never actually said it's legend.
Yeah. Maybe he's stuck in with the Balrog and he's like down in the rubble there, and they dig him out, and they're just like, "Oh, there's an elf here. Oh, hey, there's a Balrog. Whoops."
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm representing the Balrogs today.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. So, Gregory, would you buy to this potential? First of all, could this theoretically be a potential way of saying this is what happened to Keleborn?
You know, I mean, that's interesting. I mean, you know, I wouldn't hate it. You know, it's okay. You know, for building in new lore anyway. Like, obviously, like the Balrog fights I most want to see are Ecthelion of the Fountain, or you know, Feanor versus, you know, the 6 Balrogs at once, or Glorfindel, you know, versus the Balrogs. But you know, if we're gonna throw in a new one we haven't seen before and it gives us a really cool backstory for what happened to Keleborn, by all means, throw it into the fire. Let's see what happens.
It's all up in
Fair
the air
enough.
now anyway, so why
Yeah.
not?
And Nerd of the Ring says Celeborn is the elf warrior and he bursts mithril. Celeborn is mithril confirmed. That would be that, maybe that is what Celebrian keeps all the elves alive. That would be quite an interesting way. And also, if you haven't already, I think Nerdwings has uploaded his review of season 1, so make sure to go check that out after this as well. If someone wants to leave a link to that in the comments and do that. So yeah, that is quite interesting. But okay, let's go to our final. Let's go back to our final thoughts before you see him in the big screen for a second. Let's go back to our final thoughts. I think should we talk about Celebrian? I think Gregory, you just mentioned it. It's an interesting thing because before even season 1 came out, it was always discussed that how do you approach a character that is, first of all, going to marry and be entwined with Elrond, but also be Galadriel's daughter. How is this all going to work out? Will it not come off as a bit weird if she's too young? So yes, having at least I'd say a mature Celebrian would have been the best option. And some people, what they've said is that I'll put up a second, in Galadriel's talk with Theo, she mentioned Celeborn, but not Celebrian. Is that meant to be a hint that she's not born or something? Do you think, does anybody, why not mention your daughter if you're also talking about your husband? Or does anybody disagree with that?
I think the easiest interpretation is sure that she's not born yet. But I think the other interpretation could just be that she's not in danger. She wasn't someone that Galadriel has lost. So she's not brought up in the context of, why she's so sad and why she has this mission of hatred and vengeance and all that. If her daughter's alive, then she's not part of that equation.
Yeah, I mean, it was a story specifically about, who was hurt and who was in danger. So you're right, but I'm with you, Harry. Like, I really feel like she could have just said one sentence about having a daughter in one of those 10 hours, and it would have been great, and it would have made us all not feel weird that she's going to have a baby and Elrond's going to romance the baby. Anyway.
Well, here's one thought. At one point, Galadriel refuses to return to Tol Eressëa, right, and to the Undying Lands. Mm-hmm. That's canon, even if they did it differently in the show. That would imply that if that's what we saw, and then Celebrian's born after that, then she hasn't been born yet. I mean, I still think she has, but just if we're thinking chronologically, if it depends on how close they're hewing to the chronological sort of structure of the whole thing, I don't know.
I mean, I've this entire time I've always thought that she hasn't been born yet, but her being around already makes the most sense to where, maybe look, I mean, they've definitely painted Galadriel as this like rebellious person, right? Like they've said that in several interviews, like this is the rebellious, like spunky young Galadriel. So maybe her daughter is even more rebellious, and they meet each other in episode 4, and they have this like hello mother thing. I mean, I don't know.
I have a theory, but I've been talking a lot. So Nikki, do you have anything first?
I just have someone in here who's making a lot of noise. So I'm kind of just waiting until he's finished, and then I will chime in. Sorry.
All right, then I'll go ahead with my theory. We know for sure we're seeing Cirdan, right? And it's going to be this. It's as best we know, like probably the area and place in which we're going to get the most sort of elvish, the highest number of elvish scenes that we haven't seen yet, location we haven't seen yet, right? I would think that maybe that is where Celebrian is, and that we're going to see them together, and that's going to be where she's introduced into the story.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel Like, I can't make it to make sense. Do any of you know whether they actually have the rights to those?
Yeah,
characters?
they do. They do have the rights to Celeborn and Celebrian. That is never a question that unless yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
think Celebrian's story is in the appendices, correct?
Appendices, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I just
And
wasn't
Man
sure.
timelines as
and
well.
story.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because I don't know, like, I can't get any of it timeline-wise to make sense. Like, it doesn't add up. Galadriel would seem like a really bad mother again, if she's traveling around the world and her daughter is quite young. If her daughter is an adult, yes, that would make sense, but kind of weird she doesn't mention her at all. I feel like that's the kind of vibe you get when, maybe she was afraid of mentioning her daughter to Halbrand and he wouldn't find her attractive. Like, it's just weird. But people do that, it just
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, she just looks bad. If that's the way it is, it makes Galadriel look really bad.
maybe they're gonna have them be estranged.
Yeah, they could be estranged. Like, they could have ended up like Galadriel getting all mad and angry and got spiraling, alienated her from her daughter. But then wouldn't Elrond know of her or mention her or question, how is your daughter?
I think there's
Yeah.
one potential answer, and for those of you who have watched my successes and weaknesses video for season 1, first of all, thank you for all the support and nice things in the comments you guys said about it. One of the main, I think it was actually the second failure I mentioned for this show was mystery surprises, mystery box surprises. Want to know what happens next, and then building the whole season around so many different, who is this, what is happening, and a simple conclusion could potentially be the reason they don't want to talk about Celebrian in the first season is simply because they want it to be a mystery or surprise for season 2. I know. Is it called Occam's razor? I think that's the term. And you just look at the most simplest of what it could basically be, and it could just be simply the fact they just want a big nice surprise for season 2. They do like the surprises, like going to season 2 already. Whereas a sealed door, except but so many stuff like that. So that could just easily be a way. And which is why in this conversation, as you can see on screen, he was never mentioned. And I think and let's see what the comments saying. So we've got Tolkien, Elcott again, called to Pemsi's Celebrian and Aramarian 109 third age. So that's fair. Okay, that's fair. And I think that's about it. It was always Elrond loved Keleborn from afar, so maybe he doesn't know but doesn't bring it up. That could be an interesting way to put it together. Yep, indeed. But continue, Nikki.
Paul Paulo says, wasn't Celebrian born after Galadriel refused to go east? In the reduced timeline, she may not be born yet, which makes sense. Like, that would make a lot of sense that, bam, Celeborn comes back from either being a prisoner or presumed dead, and he's fought his way back, and then it's like happy reunion, bam, they hook up, boom, she's pregnant. And then, we get baby Celebrian. Yes, that makes perfect sense. And then maybe we'll never see the romance thing between Celebrian and Elrond because she's still growing up. But they would need, like, either she'll be a baby the whole, like, all of their seasons, or they have to do a time jump. And they said they're not going to do a time jump like that, I don't think. So
and now, and if they got married in year 109 of the third age, you're right. Maybe they just won't even have that romance at all, especially since haven't they already said that the show's going to basically end at the last moment of the second age?
Yeah. So it's not really that relevant, but at the same time, they would, like, the romance existed, and I don't know, Arwen wasn't born until the third age, was she?
Yeah, that's totally possible.
So could happen, but yeah, that would be the only way I could get it to make sense. I guess.
Mm-hmm,
In
indeed.
my
I
head.
think.
And
I think
also,
we.
go ahead.
No, sorry. I was about to round up, so go ahead.
I was gonna say we do know that in the last alliance, right? Like Galadriel doesn't factor as a huge character in terms of like being on the battlefield, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, despite the fact that we've seen her being one of the best warriors in the show so far. So I think it's totally plausible that she has a baby, and that essentially pulls her out of being, it fits with the lore that we know as well, right? Like that would keep her from being on the front lines because she has a daughter to protect. I mean, granted, they're messing with the lore by about 2,000 years, but nonetheless, it could be a plausible way for them to use that in the show.
I just think will include Galadriel somehow in the War of the Last Alliance. I can just see that happening anyways. But
I
yeah,
can
I would
completely,
be.
I can completely see her being on the front lines. Just from what they've done with her so far on the show, I can see her being, the last episode, season 5, commanding a huge company of warriors.
Well, what if they never mentioned them at all? What if they never show up? What if it's just Galadriel doing a solo show, the whole thing? Like, how would we feel then? I don't know.
Let the memes begin.
Yeah.
I think that's worst case scenario.
It would be, I would hope that the feedback from season 1 was sharp enough that they've made some nods to the idea that they're making some changes. I would hope they wouldn't divest from the lore that much.
Yeah. And just
are
to
they
wrap
actually
up on...
making any change? Like, have we heard that they're listening to the feedback from people, or because you would think they planned it all out already?
I think at least the first 2 seasons were written already, but there was always time for rewrites and stuff like that. I knew by August this year, only episode 1 script was confirmed to being placed in a cold storage. So that does leave 7 more scripts to still be developed. So that could be a way. Of course, still right now there is no quantifiable way I see to know if they are listening or not, but maybe they will come out and clarify that or not. Then we got the TV thing. Sorry, go ahead.
James Cameron said that he's going to adjust stuff in the 3rd Avatar based on reactions from the 2nd Avatar. And I'll remind you that they've already shot the 3rd Avatar, and he's still going back to be able to change stuff based on what the viewers thought of the 2nd one.
Yeah, I mean, as an actor, you never know. You show up to set and they're just like, here's an entire new scene that we wrote for you overnight because we realized we should do this.
Exactly.
In the movies as well, Lord of the Rings, again, on the day, so many rewrites, stuff like that. I remember Philippa Boyden seeing them on set just in the appendice versions. The
interviews I've seen sort of implied, I mean, it sounded to me from just reading between the lines that the showrunners thought, they make it sound like they're not just listening to everything the fan base says, but they're definitely incorporating at least some of the feedback. How, as Harry was saying, how much and in what ways, I think is impossible to know until we see it, but they've at least inferred that they're giving it some credence,
Yeah. And I think we have spoken a lot about, we'll keep doing the mental gymnastics around how that will all work out with Celebrian as well. But I think it's, again, the fact that we are doing that shows is just such a complex matter and why we are discussing it today. But to wrap up on Keleborn, I think we have gone fair into it. Actually, still for me, if how I think, one way I think would be cool. I think actually, no, I'll bring it back up later because I need the second age map up, and there's also digital Tolkien projects, James Talbot's theory. So I'll leave that for the time being. And while I do get that up, casting potentially, this is Callum Lynch. People have talked about the similarities.
It looks like him. It's the same experience again with Morfydd and Galadriel. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, whoa, they look alike. It's weird.
And he even put out tweets with 3 rings. So does anybody here buy the potential theory?
I do. I'd like to see it. I'd love to see him in a blonde wig. Question is, though, is he going to have long or short hair?
Wouldn't it be silver?
Oh well, yes, silver. Yeah,
Silver. Sorry,
The
that's
silver
pretty
clam.
pedantic,
silver and blonde is the same thing, just
The
platinum.
silver clam just doesn't sound as sexy as the silver fox, but you know.
Yeah. Not old
Uh,
enough to be a silver fox yet.
right. Yeah, I mean, he's got thousands of years to grow his hair that long, so maybe they'll give him short hair. I don't know.
Maybe.
Will Cirdan have a beard? I know I'm jumping ahead, but that's the real question.
Maybe he's skinned because he's been tortured by orcs and monsters. So they just
Ooh, yeah,
I
yeah.
feel
get rid of
people
all
would be
his
very
hair.
upset if Cirdan doesn't have a beard. I mean, you know, such an opportunity, you know, and that's yeah. I mean, if he doesn't, and they want to justify it because it's 5,000 plus years earlier than at the end of the third age, fine, But at the same time, like here's your chance. Give us an elf with a beard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
I mean,
sorry to wrap around from Cirdan, but we'll get back to that. But I think I agree with what AK has said here. He still looks like a son of Morphith. This show has issues with masculine features, and I think, and not more so the thing. I think he does. All just to be fair, looks like a bit young. At the same time, I'm not sure if it's just me. It looks like older than a kid, older than me.
Yeah, but
for
Lee
example.
Pace was younger than Orlando Bloom, and he still played his father.
But he
so
could, because he realistically could have looked older, but I just don't personally see Callum Lynch as theoretically looking that much older, looking the same age as Morphy. It's hard to explain, but yeah, I resonate with that in a way.
yeah.
And actually, to answer you guys' questions from earlier, I remember reading an interview where they say he will definitely have a beard. So that's nice to know that at least.
Then
But
again, they have promised us things before that didn't happen. So I just don't. I've lost trust in people. I'm sorry. What had happened to me? I'm getting really negative now. I need to go find
Yeah.
myself again.
Going a bit like a hen, but
Yeah. I need to go lay
uh,
down for a bit. Bring on the
maybe.
unicorns.
Indeed. But so this is Digital Talking Podcast. First of all, they've added so many things to this. It used to just be a map.
I love
And
that
now it's
Cold
like-
War one is there.
Yes.
Let's go.
Uh,
Let's go get the sword.
This is what Digital Talkie Project said. He thinks that potentially Keleborn could be on either one of these three islands
Oh,
for the start of season 1. That is why they were specifically included in this in the maps. And does anybody agree, disagree? Could this be a nice way? In fact, not whether you think it happened. Do you think this would be more of a good way? Would this be a reasonable way to have explained Celeborn's, well, at least disappearance of the first season? Because that's the most important thing.
What? That he's shipwrecked there and he's stuck, or?
it depends entirely on how he got there, whether or not that is a sensible way to explain it. But
Did he run away from Galadriel because she was getting too aggressive, or like I don't know.
They needed some
like,
time apart.
I mean,
Is it a-
Galadriel
is it a
swam
castaway
like
sort of
the length
scenario?
of Europe
is
to get back.
What's the Middle Earth equivalent of a volleyball? Like, does he have his own Wilson? Like,
That would be great. It would be so good. What would that be, like a coconut?
Yeah.
Do they have
could be a
coconuts in Middle
coconut.
Earth?
It's never been. I don't know if coconuts were ever discussed.
No.
Well, one way it could theoretically work is that we know from when Galadriel was talking to a young boy Theo, saying he lost him, I think, in a battle. He was not to be seen after. I think
Theo
that
was lost in a battle.
not Theo. Keleborn
Oh.
was lost in a battle. Was that the reason why he got lost and she couldn't find him again?
Mhm.
Maybe during one of the battles in the first stage in
He ran
Beleriand.
away.
yeah.
I think Nick, you're really on. No, that's not what I was specifically.
I've
hearing.
lost the plot now. It's the hat. I'm gonna take it off.
Maybe in a battle he had to flee to one of these islands, where he fled to the area in Beleriand, which could be where one of these islands was. But then
Right.
when Beleriand fell, and well, let me first get my thoughts back together. When Beleriand fell at the end of the first stage, these 3 islands still survived. But when Galadriel saw all the other people who survived the sinking of Beleriand, Celeborn is not there. That is why, because so she thinks he is dead now because the island, well, Beleriand, the whole landmass has fallen and he's not survived. But maybe he was luckily, or maybe in some reason, maybe he was visiting. Isn't it Turin's tomb? I think in one of them.
Tol
I don't know,
Morwen.
yeah, Tol Morwen is where I think Turin's. Maybe he was visiting one of that, and maybe he survived. And then in season 2, we'll see him make it.
You know what I
to-
like
Maybe
about
he
that?
thinks she's dead. as
the,
well.
sorry to finish. I'll we'll get to you.
Yeah.
Then he somehow makes it to Mithlond, which is where we'll also meet Cirdan in season 2. And that is, of course, I would like to take full credit for that theory. And I think, but again, thank you to Digital Talking Project, which actually was on the stream with me once when he mentioned this theory. What chat think about this theory as well? Because I could see that working possibly.
You know what I like about that is that there is a lot of criticism for Galadriel for pursuing Sauron for the death of Finrod, but not for the death of Celeborn. And I understand the instinct to think that way, but that only works if she believes that Sauron is the one who killed Celeborn, right? And I'd always assumed that it was maybe it was Morgoth who killed Celeborn, so she doesn't blame Sauron and she can't really go after Morgoth, right? But if it's the fact that she believes Celeborn died essentially at the hands of the Valar at the end of the First Age, right? Then it would make sense that that's why she has no anger towards. She has sadness and anger around the death of Celeborn, but not directed at Sauron.
That is an interesting way, and I think you did raise. Sorry, Jason. I think you would have go ahead, but then just the fact that she did specifically mention Sauron and not Morgoth, for example. So yeah. Sorry, Jason. I thought you were going to.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I agree with Greg.
Oh.
That could be it. My main sticking point though is that, and I think we have this inherent feeling or vibe that elves kind of all are in presence of each other, right? Like they're aware of their presence, like they know where they are. And I don't know, gosh, I hope it's not the movies that make me think that only, but
sorry, what was that again?
Oh, just that I feel that Galadriel, if Celeborn wasn't blocked in some way, that she would know that he was alive, that she wouldn't think that he was dead. So I feel like there's something more sinister at work, how they're going to explain it, whether it's the unseen world or he's in a remnant of Autumno or Thangorodrim or something, and then once he's out of that prison, his presence is known again. I feel like that just him being on an island, there needs to be a more of an explanation to me than just he's on this island. If he's on this island in a prison that has some sort of unseen world shield around it, then yeah, I feel like Galadriel would know that her husband is alive if there wasn't some other sinister thing at play.
Well, Tolkien explained, or Tolkien erklärt, did say that those areas were completely in control of Morgoth's armies after the Nina. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Anoidad. Anyway, which means that could be the case, and he could be there, and he's stuck there, being held prisoner, and perhaps he doesn't know what happened to Galadriel, so he's not trying to find her because he thinks she's dead as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And to add one more to that, maybe if we get in a Dar flashback, and it was the same place maybe there Adar was maybe prisoned or twisted and corrupted. That could be where the root, and then we might even maybe get a flashback, which includes maybe Adar and Celeborn
Although
there,
when
like,
Adar was telling his story, did they not flash back to that northern fortress? Like,
Yeah, they did. They did hint at
okay.
him being there, and that, like, he even hinted at him being the one that stabbed Sauron and sent him wherever he went when he became Halbrand.
Yeah.
But he could have had his start somewhere else still. Like, it doesn't mean that he was there the whole time. It just means that he went with Sauron there at some point.
I feel like
Fair.
any the twisting of Adar and the others, the original orcs, the Uruk, had to be up north in Angband and Atumno, right? Like, I mean, that's where all that happens, right? Now, it's not just on an island that was essentially in the middle of Beleriand, you know.
I mean, but hey, it could be like a satellite location. You never know.
He's just floating on a meteor somewhere.
Yeah.
But now we have Cirdan. What do you guys think about this? Let's get on to him now. Jason, I'll start off with you.
Yeah, well, I obviously, as a fan of beards, I certainly hope that they give him a beard. But I think with Cirdan, I don't see it being some great reveal. I just see maybe they all of a sudden the camera pans down to him working on a ship, and then this is how we meet this new character, this new elven character, and then we discover his wisdom along the way. That's how I think that it'll start, and then he becomes a voice of reason, perhaps, to Gil-galad, and makes him see things a little bit differently, because obviously they've made Gil-galad in this first season kind of obtuse to a certain extent. He doesn't really feel like the Gil-galad from the books yet. But maybe they're taking him on a journey as well. But he feels rather like obstinate and very, dare I say, tyrant-like in this first season. So maybe Cirdan becomes his voice of reason and makes him see things a different way.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
would
I'd
love
write it.
that. And Cirdan was one of the ones who tried to dissuade Celebrimbor from making the Three Rings originally, despite becoming the heir to one of them later. So that implies that he has a certain amount of, reason and sort of level-headedness earlier on. And he's also supposed to be one of the oldest and wisest elves already at this point. So, I would love to see that. Like, I think we need a voice of sort of grounded reason in the show. And he's one of the most enigmatic and interesting characters who we just, in Tolkien's actual work, didn't, he's always more hinted at and stuff, and, told through these sort of opaque ways than we ever really get to sort of sit with the character. And so I think this is he's probably one of the characters I'm most interested in getting to spend some time with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And for me,
I don't know.
Nikki, what don't you know about?
He doesn't feel like the hero type that would swoop in and save the Fellowship from the Balrog. Like, he seems more like someone who's very content with the way that they're living, in like a first world kind of vibe, with everything handed to him, basically. That's the feeling I'm getting at the moment with the way that he's behaving. I'm like, yeah, I just feel like he feels entitled and inexperienced, and that he's not interested in fighting, and that he doesn't want to fight, and that he's like,
Is this
he's more
Cirdan or
intent on
Gil-galad?
Gil-galad.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah.
Cirdan, I don't know, because we
And
haven't seen him yet. But
I like that point, because for characterization around that, what I want to see from Cirdan in the sixth season is potentially a character that Gil-galad almost relies on in a way, like knows is like, I don't want him to be, it sounds weird, I don't want him to be too involved in the season. I just want him to just be a character that we know to the side that Gil-galad is still strong in center, but that is still that person that he can go to which almost is like a relic of the past now, almost like a Darn way. Feels like a relic of the past, but still has that wisdom, still has the knowledge to help. So we know that Gilgalad is still technically, is still not the know of everything, and we still have another elf, Higo Kurdan, who will give them the expertise. So I really want to see that connection as well. And they did work together quite a lot. For example, whenever Eldarion or some of the Numenorians would come to Mithlond, they would meet Gilgalad as well. And yeah, I'd like to see that. And also, I'm not sure if I'm wrong. It's been like about a year since I've gone through the whole chronology of the Battle of the War of the Elves and Sauron, but I think Cirdan helps in battle, or at least helps support one of the, or at least has a regiment or something. I think that is, and if we are getting a 2 episode battle, maybe we're gonna see him as maybe as one of the leaders, because I know Sauron's forces at one point they get up to close. I know probably Tolkien Elkar will be able to give more of a, if you want to help. Also gets to near the border of Linden, but then the troops push back. I know some Numenorians do help from Linden as well, so he could maybe come with the Numenorian, what the Numenorians have helped to support Linden, and that could be his role in a battle. So he does have, it's quite a lot that they could do with the character. But yeah, seeing that almost leaning on, like Gilgalad having to lean on him would be a nice way that I'd see it. And maybe he gives some wisdom to Gilgalad and says, maybe this is not how you rule. And
That's
as
what
he
I'm hoping.
said, tyrant, and even as I said, I called him an asshole in my video of the successes and failures. He did act like one, like
He
I
was.
said, like
Yeah.
like a, it's like, yeah, working to have that annoying boss. That's what it felt like. The annoying boss, you have a job you wanted to leave. That's what it kind of felt like. So having, yeah, maybe calming him down and seeing that would be a nice thing as well. So yeah, there is a lot of things that they can do. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
Well, they are gonna have to include him, obviously, because of the ring that he
Sure.
gets. So maybe the first time we see him, he gets one of those rings that were made in the last season, in the last episode, in the previous season. Maybe that's how they introduce him. Like they invite him to come because they're like, so who else would we give the ring to? And then,
I would love if they took a little time with that. You know, I don't know if they will, but it would be great if, you know, they took some time before sort of dispersing the rings. You know, like that takes a couple episodes and they build to something. There's a reason, you know, something happens in the show that causes them to give the ring to Cirdan. You know, I think that would be a really, you know, interesting use of them, since they already, you know, they forged them so quickly. Like, let's get some drama with them, you know?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
as a viewer, like once again, as you know, for the casual viewers who don't, you know, they're making this show not for us, right? They're making it for the wider public. Then the wider public will then learn about Cirdan's, you know, will see firsthand his power and wisdom and what his significance is to the Elven realm.
Mhm.
You know, that'd be cool.
Indeed, indeed. And I think there's so much we can look forward to and see, hopefully, and continue to discuss. And also, Steve, thank you. Got to go. Nice to see the live chat back. Yes, nice to see everyone in the chat again and doing streams. We'll do more of these more regularly. Yes, so nice to see you and everyone as well. Thank you for the super chat, or of course any super chats are much appreciated. Thank you, thank you. So there we go. Anybody have any final points, or can I go to the little hint part at the end of the stream?
Give us a hint.
Yeah.
Well,
Bring it
this
on.
Sunday. This
Wait,
Sunday,
is this a hint, a leak, or a scoop?
well, no, this is basically I'm going to be hinting at what the scoop that we're going to be revealing on Sunday. So,
All right.
so it's like so how to explain it. So it's one of the secondary shows I'm more excited for out of the ones we've done so far for season 2, and it's hard to explain. It's kind of, I would technically categorize it as a canon character, but it is at the same time not fully a canon character, and it's got something to do with Numenor. And I think that's the best way to explain it. It is something canon, but is technically not a canon character. We'll be discussing that, plus a new location on Sunday as well, and that's going to be all around Numenor. So that's all I can say at this time. But you can speculate, and it's not Anarion. That's nothing because he's a confirmed canon, not confirmed for the show, but he's a canon character that has a name. So
Right.
it is quite an interesting thing. So yeah, I'll see. Well, this Sunday we'll have the video at 6:30, half an hour before this normal time as well. So yes, that is where it'll be. So do any of you have any hints as to who it could possibly be, or what character it could possibly be?
Give the hint again. Say it the same way you did before.
It's a Numenorian character that is technically, you can consider it as a canon character, but it is not a canon. But it's not a character that has a name.
Oh, like maybe one of the like an official or a priest or something that like they
It's a
mentioned.
Nazgul.
That's sort of where my mind was going.
Nazgul?
Or it's Sauron.
Or I'm thinking just one of the Black Numenorians, which those are referred to as a category, but we don't really get names of who they are.
We also have the actor for it as well. That's one thing. So to make people, so yeah, that is all I'm going to leave everyone with. So we will see you on Sunday. But everybody here, first, thank you, Jason, for coming on as always.
Yes, love it. As often as I can, I'll be here.
Indeed. And as always, Nikki, thank you. As always.
Always happy to be here.
And finally, last but not least, Gregory, thank you.
Glad to be back.
Perfect. And we hopefully will I'd see you next week or in the next few weeks. So thank you everyone in chat as well. It's been quite it's nice to get back into the role of things. Of course, we know this far 2 years away. There will be less, of course, interaction discussion on the show. So we appreciate everyone who is here. And slowly when we get back to that period, we'll all first of all look a bit older, including me, and we'll also have a second season to discuss. So thank you all, and until the next one.